Great rivalries have always existed in boxing. It's part of the sport's legacy. It's what's not only led to some of the best fights in boxing history, but some of the biggest events in all of sports. Unfortunately, in modern times, a lot of the biggest rivalries in boxing don't exist in the ring. They don't even carry over to the ring. They exist on social media, in the Twitter sphere. You look at Mayweather-Pacquiao for 5-6 years, it was fanboys and haters going back and forth on Twitter before the guys finally got in the ring, and when they did, it was way too late and wasn't worth the investment. Now you got the thing going on between Andre Ward and Gennady Golovkin, and you go further down the weight scale, you got one brewing between one Vasyl Lomachenko and one Guillermo Rigondeaux. And unfortunately, a lot of these things turn into this white versus black, overhyped versus disrespected narrative that's become way too typical, not only in boxing, not only in sports, but our entire society these days. And I expect some of the crazies on Twitter and Facebook and all of social media to go there. I expect that. But I get disappointed when I see media members going there and diehard fans that are supposed to be educated on this and fighters themselves playing into all this. Beyond being irresponsible and dangerous, it's just plain lazy. So yeah, I need to go on a little rant. Let's talk some Lomachenko-Rigondeaux. Guys, before I go into details, okay, and start talking about the differences and similarities between Rigo and Loma, let me just preface some things up front. This video is going to deal with some sensitive subjects, all right? Let's keep the comments civil. Let's keep the comments grown up and as objective as possible, okay? Now, just to give you a little perspective about my point of view on subjects like this and really everything, I don't really have an agenda. I don't have a political ideology I subscribe to. I'm not on the left or the right. I don't register with either political party. I'm not a religious guy. There's no real social justice movement that I subscribe to. I'm not a believer in these hashtag causes and all that crap, all right? I work in the boxing media and I dabble in the entertainment industry. And by day, my day job is in the financial industry. I find the best way for me to operate in all those worlds is to be as moderate, objective, and middle ground as I can be. The problem I see, not just in boxing, but in sports and all our society in general, is that so many people have biases and look through things, look through life through this little prism, this little filter. And when you see things only with that bias in mind, you see that one statistic that kind of feeds into your bias and you ignore all the other statistics. You see that one news story that kind of feeds your point of view and bolsters your argument and you ignore all the other stories. And that's my problem with some of this Lomachenko-Rigondeaux stuff. I've made videos about Andre Ward and Gennady Golovkin and all that dynamic, but all this kind of got heightened in the past few days because Vasyl Lomachenko scored a 10th round stoppage on the Bradley Rios undercard against Romulo Kosica. And I didn't see the HBO broadcast. I was ringside, so I didn't hear any of it, but just looking at my Twitter feed and some of the social media stuff and some of the podcasts and shows and interviews I've seen since, apparently the HBO commentators were just drooling over Lomachenko and talking about how he's pound for pound this and amazing that and just his footwork and his movement and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, he was fighting a B-level fighter. He was dominating, but he wasn't fighting an elite level pound for pound guy, so it's pretty easy to look good against him, right? Now, full disclosure, I tweeted during that fight that, man, Lomachenko does everything beautifully, because he does. If you're into that type of boxing masterclass type of thing, he's fun to watch. If you're into that, it's not really my cup of tea. Lomachenko's not the most exciting fighter. He's not the second coming of Golovkin or Canelo or any of these guys. But if you just want to see pure technician, he's damn good. So is Rigondeaux, Mayweather, Andre Ward, plenty of other guys, Victor Postol, they're all technicians. Vladimir Klitschko, I can go on, right? Not necessarily my must-see TV kind of thing, but Loma's one of those guys. Of course, with the pound-for-pound talks and all that, immediately some fans feel this reflexology response to start talking about Rigondeaux. And they start saying things like, well, why weren't the HBO guys drooling over the Cuban star when he was fighting on HBO airwaves? And of course, it goes to this white versus black thing because that's the quickest, easiest dynamic for lazy people to get to. It's right there in your face. You can't ignore it, right? Well, me being the moderate, objective, middle ground kind of guy I am, the last place I go, the last place is race, gender, or, sex or whatever, any of that stuff, religion. I think it's the last place you should go. I think you should look at all the other factors before you start going to that stuff. And that's why some of this just drives me nuts. And I felt compelled to make this video and rant a little bit. Let's talk about these two guys and their similarities, and then let's talk about the differences, and then let's talk about disrespect and double standards and all that. Loma and Rigo are always going to be compared to each other because they fight 4 pounds apart. Rigo has fought at 122 his whole pro career so far. Loma, 126 his whole career so far. Both of them had a very, very fast trajectory as pros. Both of them almost immediately signed with Top Rank and were fighting on American national television, right? And fighting for a title early on. Going back to the amateurs, Rigo had an amateur career of 374 and 12, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Lomachenko had an amateur career of 396 and 1, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Both Lomachenko and Rigondeaux are technicians, right? They fight kind of like amateurs still. They're really pity-pat with their punches. They're not power punchers. They're not blowing guys away. They're not steamrolling guys like Roman Gonzalez and stuff like that. And a lot of fans out there would say they're quote-unquote boring, and they link them together. Some fans are upset that Lomachenko gets paid more than Rigondeaux. I believe his guarantee is $750,000 under the Top Rank promoter. And Rigondeaux has kind of been sitting idle, and before that wasn't getting paid quite that much. And a lot of fans feel that Lomachenko just gets more love from the media and from casual fans, fair weather boxing fans than Rigondeaux does. And they want to know why, because they say, well, Lomachenko's the same guy that Rigondeaux is, except he's white and Rigondeaux's black. Well, it's not quite that simple, okay? Sticking with the white and black thing, I just want to clarify something real quick too. There's other white and black feuds going on right now, like between Andre Ward and Gennady Golovkin, except in that example, Andre Ward really isn't black. He's mulatto, he's mixed, and Gennady Golovkin is a quarter Asian, 3/4 Caucasian. So I guess that qualifies as white, but his heritage is mixed. He has a mixed heritage, right? That's just more than just a quote-unquote regular white guy. So the white and black is kind of a gray there. But if you're looking at Lomachenko and Rigondeaux, it is a white and black dynamic, and that probably does play a factor to a degree. Some of you out there I've seen some weird comments like Lomachenko isn't white, he's Russian. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean, but Russians are Caucasian, guys. Lomachenko's a white guy. He's maybe not an Anglo-white or a Hispanic white, but he's a Eastern European or Slavic white. He's a white guy. And Rigondeaux, some of you have called him a dark-skinned Cuban or a dark Hispanic. I don't know what the hell that means. He's black, okay? I apologize to my watchers, my viewers in Latin America and Europe. You guys already know all this. But unfortunately here in the United States, as cutting edge as we are with some things, when it comes to race and ethnicity, my country is really stupid and ignorant and uneducated. And people in this country don't seem to understand that Hispanic isn't a race. It's a heritage, it's a culture. Somehow people, boxing fans in America, look at Guillermo Rigondeaux, Marcos Maidana and Canelo Alvarez and see the same race. I know. But anyway, the reason why I say all this is because we really do have a dynamic here where you got a white guy and a black guy, okay? So let's clarify all that. And maybe it does play a part, but I don't think it's the real big reason why one guy is getting kind of the shaft right now and one guy is kind of getting some love. Again, as I've said about other videos where there's seemingly disrespect about this fighter or that fighter, I'm not seeing the disrespect with Guillermo Rigondeaux. 4 years into his career, he was fighting on HBO against the Fighter of the Year, one of HBO's stables, one of Top Rank stables, Nonito Donaire. Now, it's pretty obvious Bob Arum at Top Rank and the guys at HBO, they wanted Nonito Donaire to win because he had a built-in fan base. They were trying to build him up as the new Pacquiao, right, because of the Filipino thing. Donaire is American, speaks English, much more marketable, at least in principle, than Rigondeaux was. And Rigondeaux shocked the party, right? He crashed the party, he dominated Donaire and won. At that point though, guys, he was getting mad respect. He was on everyone's pound for pound list. I mean, I'm talking top 3 pound for pound. And he was considered one of the best practitioners of pure boxing of this generation, instantly. Now, the problem is he's only fought 3 times since then. And I get it that Bob Arum, he's guilty here because he went on record saying, how do I promote this guy? Oh, I can't promote him. And he shouldn't have done that. That was not very professional. But the guys at HBO, they gave Rigondeaux several chances. He fought on their air several times. The problem with Rigondeaux is it's not that he's black. It's not that he doesn't speak English. It's not that he doesn't have the most dynamic personality. I mean, things like speaking English and personality would go a long way for him. But you look at a guy like Chocolatito Gonzalez, you know, Chocolatito's exciting. Right? And he goes in there, and even if he doesn't get a knockout, which he does, but even if he didn't get knockouts, his body language, he wants to be great. He wants to entertain. You look at Rigondeaux, his body language is one of, it looks like a guy who's punching into a job every day that he doesn't like, but he makes good money, he's good at it, and he can do it in his sleep. He's on autopilot. That is the body language you get from Guillermo Rigondeaux, right? I don't even know that Guillermo likes boxing. We've seen plenty of Cuban amateurs, standout Cuban amateurs, become professionals, and they've said multiple times in interviews, I don't even like boxing. I was pushed into this by our government as a kid. I was good at it. It was a way for me to get the hell out of Cuba and make some money. Rigondeaux seems to kind of have that point of view. At least that's the way it looks. Rigondeaux's been dropped multiple times in fights by guys that he should have blown out of the water. He fights down to the level of his opposition. When he's in there with a Nonito Donaire, he raises his game and he looks amazing. But he's been dropped by some guys that honestly should have been sparring partners for him. He doesn't give a shit, guys. This is a way for him to make some money. That's pretty much it. Now you compare that to Vasyl Lomachenko, who, when he decided he was going to go pro, came over to the United States, I believe with his father. Don't quote me, but I believe he came over with his dad, with his family. He met with several promoters, managers, trainers, and talked to all of them, weighed his options, and decided to go with the promoter that he felt would be the best fit for him. And that was ultimately Top Rank. And he told them in no uncertain terms, look, one introductory fight, whatever, welcome fight, and then I'm fighting for a damn title. I'm not wasting my time. I want to be great. He laid down the rule right there, and he's followed that. In his second pro fight, he fights Orlando Salido. Second pro fight, Orlando Salido, for a title, and that fight wasn't on the up and up, right? It was not fought on even terms. There was a lot of things going on that shouldn't have been happening. And Lomachenko lost that fight. To his credit, I mean, him and his team could have protested and said this should be changed to a no contest or something. They didn't pout, whatever. They got right back to work. Very next fight, Gary Russell Jr. dominates him, wins the vacant title that he lost, or lost the attempt for in that fight against Salido. And look, Gary Russell Jr. was considered one of the bright young talents of those lower weight classes, right? So he got right to work. Now, Lomachenko doesn't necessarily set the world on fire with his style. He pity-pats with his punches, fights punches very amateurish. He does, just like Rigondeaux. In fact, pound for pound, Rigondeaux might have more power than Lomachenko. The difference is body language. It looks like he loves to box. If you've seen him working out at the gyms, if you've seen interviews with him, again, not a very dynamic personality, kind of cold, kind of distant, like Rigondeaux is. Has no desire to learn English, like Rigondeaux, right? Doesn't live in America, whatever. But when the guy trains, when the guy boxes, when he gets in the ring, you can tell he likes doing what he's doing. It's different than that guy who comes in every day, clocks in for work, goes through the motions, and can't wait to get the hell out of work. He's clocking out at 4:59. Right? So he can get home and have a beer. And then you got the guy who punches into work a few minutes early, volunteers for extra work, punches out at 5:15, right? That's the difference I see between these two guys, the eye test. And it doesn't necessarily mean that one is more exciting to watch than the other in the ring, but sometimes, guys, body language goes a long, long way. You look at Rigondeaux's current situation with his promoter. Look, Top Rank just didn't do the guy any justice, okay? And I put some of the blame for Rigondeaux's current situation on Bob Arum and the guys at Top Rank. HBO doesn't have a damn thing to do with it, though. Rigondeaux is currently with this promoter, Caribe Promotions or something like that, and I know for a fact, because I've heard it from multiple sources, that they've offered him several fights this year that he has turned down. Wouldn't have got the $750,000 payday Lomachenko just got, but it would have been six figures, okay? It would have been a nice little chunk of change against a nondescript opponent that he could have just slept, basically box slept. You've heard of like sleepwalking. He could have sleep boxed and beat these guys for six figures. He turned it down. Rigondeaux hasn't fought this year. If he has problems with his promoter and he wants out of that contract, why isn't he filed a lawsuit? Why hasn't he complained about it? Why are there no sound bites from Rigondeaux sounding off about his promoter, his manager, complaining about not getting fights? All I can do is assume, because I haven't talked to Rigondeaux, but it looks to me like he doesn't give a shit. So then we come back to this disrespect thing and this, well, how come Lomachenko's being hyped up and Rigondeaux isn't? Well, guys, in case you don't know, HBO, think of them as a promoter. It's no different than the PBC, Showtime, and all that stuff. HBO is basically a promoter. They're basically a satellite office for Top Rank and Golden Boy Promotions. Think of it that way. And guess what? Lomachenko fights on HBO. So they're gonna hype the guy up. Now, I know this for a fact because I was looking at my Twitter feed. Again, I didn't watch the HBO broadcast the other night, but during that pound for pound, drooling, slobbering love affair the HBO commentators were having over Lomachenko, guess whose name got brought up? Andre Ward. I believe it was by Max Kellerman, who just has a major hard-on for Andre Ward. Andre Ward, who hasn't done shit in 3 years in the sport. Nothing even close to pound for pound since 2012, right? Why would they even bring him up in a pound for pound discussion? Because he just signed a 3-fight deal to HBO. That might have something to do with it. So guess what? While they're hyping up one guy fighting in the ring, they're hyping up another guy who hasn't been fighting, but also fights on their network. HBO is a promoter. They hype up their fighters, guys. There's no double standards or racism going on here. It's the HBO commentators doing pretty much what the PBC commentators do. Do we hold the HBO guys to a higher standard? Yes, we do, because you have to pay money for that HBO subscription, and they're supposed to have the better fighters and the better fights. Fine. They shouldn't be fanboys. We should hold them to a higher standard. But to bring all this white and black shit into it, it's so lazy. There's so much more underneath that surface. Stop being lazy. Speaking of pound for pound, I want to make a quick distinction. Vasily Lomachenko has only had 6 professional fights. He should not be on any pound for pound list yet, guys. Just has not done enough. He's faced 2, what I would call top level opponents, but not 1 elite level opponent yet. So he needs a few more fights before he's on anybody's top 10 pound for pound list. It's fine to talk about pound for pound potential. We all know he has it. We all know in a couple years he's gonna be on the list. He's gotta do more as a professional. Now, Guillermo Rigondeaux, he should be on pound for pound list. He has done enough. He has fought that 1 elite opponent. However, he hasn't fought in 11 months. So in 1 more month, that's a year of inactivity, he's gonna be off my pound for pound list. This is boxing. This is sports. It's all about what have you done for me lately. Having 1 great accomplishment a couple years ago doesn't last very long, and you gotta keep going with it. That's my biggest complaint about Andre Ward in the Super 6 tournament he won in 2011. Cool story, bro. That was 4 years ago. What have you done for me lately? So Guillermo Rigondeaux is pound for pound. He deserves to be on the list, but in 1 more month of inactivity, he's gone. Lomachenko, gotta do more before I put him on my list. All right, a couple more things and then I'll let this go and we can get the conversation going. Please comment below. Please keep it civil. Please keep it respectable, gentlemen and ladies. But I just want to make a couple more points. 1, comparing the styles. I've talked about it a little bit between Rigo and Lomachenko. Look, neither one are very, very exciting. But sticking with Lomachenko, who is a technician, right? One thing I noticed Saturday night in his fight against Kosica, there was no clinching. There was no Victor Postol, Vladimir Klitschko, Andre Ward, Bernard Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather clinching. There was pity-pat, spin, pity-pat, spin, pity-pat, spin. And once he got the guy wore down, bam, get him out of there. Could he have maybe got him out of there in 3 rounds like Roman Gonzalez would have done, like Gennady Golovkin would have done? Sure. He's not that kind of fighter. He's an amateur, style, land shots, stay at the right distance kind of a guy. But at no point in that fight did I see a guy who looked bored. I didn't see a guy who was like, ugh, I have to box again, shit, when do I get paid? Ugh. And I've seen that body language with Guillermo Rigondeaux. So while their styles are similar, they're not that damn similar, guys. Watch some footage on these 2 fighters. One last point. Again, I talked about Guillermo Rigondeaux and his promotional situation. Guys, if he really felt like he was being disrespected, if he really felt like he wasn't getting a fair shake, if he really felt like his current management wasn't doing him any favors, he could be going to court, he could be pounding the drums, trying to get out of those contracts, and he could go to the land where everyone gets respected, where they can't get respect anywhere else, Al Haymon land. He could go to the PBC, where Al Haymon has plenty of fighters at 122 pounds that he could put Guillermo Rigondeaux up against. And all these PBC guys make pretty nice money, generally fighting in showcase type of scenarios, right? 122 to 126 is probably the most loaded 2 divisions in boxing, but it's also the most fractured area in boxing as far as the promotional situation. You got Al Haymon in PBC universe. He's got half of the guys. Top Rank and Golden Boy, they have their guys. There's guys over in Asia, promoters over there who have their own fighters. There's guys in Europe that have their own fighters. The promotional situation from 122 to 126 prevents some of these great fights we could be having. We could be having a golden era right now in those weight classes. If Rigondeaux really gave a shit and was really unhappy and felt like he wasn't fighting enough and getting enough money, he could go to Al Haymon land. Al Heyman would probably buy him out of his current contract. He's done it before. So all of you that think he's getting disrespected and this is racism and the people at HBO are biased, just look at what Rigondeaux's doing right now, or lack thereof. Look at his action or lack thereof in his career. Disrespect? Double standards? I don't think so.